So, the end of 2019. So, we're going to do a retrospective today. But before that, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of the elevator speech. Do y'all know what an elevator speech is? Everybody knows what that? I see a few people saying no. So an elevator speech is if, you get in the elevator with somebody, a prominent person or, whatever, and you wanted to do a pitch. So our elevator speech for who we are, I've been thinking about that. Like, what would you say if you had 2 minutes to tell somebody what this place was about, what it means, who we are, what we believe? And so I'm planting the seeds out there because I'm going to invite different people to come up here and just share what does that look like? Because I know a lot of everybody here, I think, has come from some other faith tradition. Yes? Yeah, and when you tell your families that you're coming to this place called the Center for Spiritual Living, where they teach the science of mind, aka religious science, and they go, "Is it a cult? What is that?" So I want for all of us to be able to speak kind of succinctly about what it is that we are, because I'm seeing a growth in this place. There's so many people that are looking for this message, that are ready for it, and we want to be able to communicate what that message is. So I don't know how, well, I'm not going to try and do it in 2 minutes, but from my perspective, what I believe we are is that we are a diverse community. Just look around the room. Look at the diversity in age, in ethnicity, in lifestyle, everything. We have everybody in this place. And I think if I could sum up who we are in a word, I would say we are possibilitarians, right? Or solutionaries. That's another word that I love. Solutionaries and possibilitarians. In other words, there's all of this negativity and stuff that's going on out there, and it's really easy to fall into that. But there are people that need to hold the torch, right? People that need to be in the front and say, that was then, but this is now. This is a new day, and this is how we want to create it as conscious creators. Because we are also a community of conscious creators, of healers, of light workers, you name it, spiritual activists. There's all kinds of ways to describe us. But the common thread is that we're here because we all are on a spiritual path, deepening our own faith and trying to make the most of the lives that we are living. And so we honor all spiritual paths, right? We teach the common threads, the universal truths. What does universal mean? It applies to everybody, everybody. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how much money you have or don't have, how fat or thin, or if you're a carnivore or a vegan. All of those things, it applies to everybody. And that's what we teach in this place, is universal truth principles, that when you get those right, your life works. Right? It is the underlying, it is the foundation of everything else. When you're right spiritually, your financial life works, your relationships work, your vocation, all of that stuff. And so we're here, we're all working on it together, a work in progress, right? Each and every one of us. So for today, as I said, we're wrapping up 2019. So I want to do kind of where we've been, because in order to know where you're going, it's good to know where you are, right? Where you've come from, so you kind of get an idea of the trajectory that you're headed in. So who is it that said the unexamined life is not worth living? Who is it? Socrates. Yes, Socrates said that, and I think that's very true. So we take this time. Of course, we can do this kind of assessment any day, every day. We should be doing it every day, but for it's just what we do at the end of the year. We kind of do that assessment. Where have we been and where are we going? So I just kind of went through all of the different talks and what our themes were for the month. And actually the theme for the year, go back here, is spirituality in action. That was the theme for 2019. And all of Centers for Spiritual Living, for those of you who are new, we are this fabulous little gem in Ocala, but we are also part of a much larger movement. There are lots of other Centers for Spiritual Living, over 400 throughout the United States and the world. So if you're visiting, you just happen to be here in Ocala today, we're glad to have you and hope that you will visit other centers when you go other places. So the year in review, 2019 at CSL Ocala, what did we do? Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit to that. Those who come here regularly know that at the end of 2018, I made a big decision. and that was to step away from the pulpit as a full-time minister. I didn't know what that meant or what that was going to look like. It was a little scary, to tell you the truth, because I wasn't sure if the community would continue to thrive and survive, not just thrive, but actually survive if I wasn't in the pulpit every Sunday. And so I had to. I make it a practice to surrender to Spirit and the guidance that I receive. And it wasn't the guidance I wanted to hear, but it was the guidance I needed. So I stepped back a little bit. I didn't know what that was going to look like. But in my stepping back, it created space for a lot of other people to step forward and for things to change. And things have shifted. So I took a part-time position at the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, and I promised them a year, and that year is up. And so I'm ready to come back home. But again, I practice that surrender, so we just see where that all goes. But I am hoping and planning to be here much more this year. So we created lots of space, and we had lots of great presenters and facilitators and musicians that came throughout the year. I want to thank our in-house people first. Where's Kelly? Kelly Brigman spoke this year, yes, and Patricia Wagner, and our own Donna Davis. Patricia's not here today. We also had some of my friends, Jerry Gregg and Tom Pittman. Barclay Braden did a great workshop on journaling. Marion Head, a very well-known author who wrote Revolutionary Agreements. Reverend Jim Rosemergy, who was, I think, vice president or something big in Unity, huge in Unity for many years. Then we had lots of musicians, Cecilia St. King, Ferry Elaine Silver, Bob Sima and Shannon. How many of you know Bob Sima and Shannon? And they're coming back. They're going to do a concert. And so is Elaine. We've got a big year planned. So Bob is coming. Amy Steinberg was here. Yes, we're hoping to get Amy back in April. John Stringer, we've had John Stringer. You all remember John was just here recently. Black Jesus, we love him. We had conscious connected breathing workshops, a couple of those. That conscious connected breathing puts you in an altered state. It's amazing. We had Transcendence. Abby's not here, but I wanted to thank her and the whole Transcendence team. And then we've got our crystal bowls. You know, when they go on the road, Your Phoenix is Rising, Donna and Norma, you know, people want them to take those bowls, and they're like, wow, can you stay? They wanted to keep them in San Francisco, so they couldn't have them. And what? And John Moore. John, was he here this past year? No, he's coming this year. John is coming this year. Was he here? Well, I missed John. John's another one. So John Moore is a facilitator that we're going to see in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks for Family Constellations. And Michael Gott. Yeah, so we've got a big lineup. Yeah, how many of you know the name Michael Gott? There's a few. When you hear this man sing, it opens your heart in a way that you just can't even imagine till you hear it, the resonance of this voice. Super excited to have him come. Grady won't miss that. Yes. So it was a big year. We also had lots of transitions. You know, people come and they leave, and we lost Reverend Gail Reuter, who came. She had retired from her ministry in Maryland, and she came as Reverend Peggy and I were making our transition. I was stepping into the pulpit. Reverend Peggy was leaving after 20 years, and Reverend Gail came in for that, you know, kind of in between, and held my hand, and she was like my security blanket as I got my feet under me as a new minister. And she was a great cheerleader, and she loved this place, and she made her transition in September. So, what did we go through? I'll just go through the different months of the year. And this past year, in 2019, I did what the larger organization was doing. All of us ministers were all independent. Everyone is an independent center. But Centers for Spiritual Living offers a curriculum and outlines and things and ideas for the whole group. So if I wanted to, I could just go and look at the outline created by another minister and step in and do their talk on a Sunday morning. That's not my style. So I went with the theme, so we stayed with the theme, but I just kind of did my own thing. And for the first month in January, we talked about Spirituality in action, what it means to live in principle. And so that was a conversation about what are the basics of what we teach here, this universal life principle, what is it? And if I could boil it down to one thing, one statement, it's the idea that there is a power for good in this universe that is greater than I am, and I can use it. I can use it. That comes from Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of this movement. But Ernest Holmes also said that we were open at the top. It's not like there was this thing that we all learned and it's done, like the gospel. It always it's always the same. So I think we're looking at changing that. There's a power for good in the universe that is greater than me, and I can use it. So what we're saying now, what I'm saying is that there is a power for good in this universe that is greater than me, and it uses me. Yeah. Right? I am its vessel. I am spirit in expression. Each one of us is. And that's what we believe here, and that's what we teach. So that was January. That's big, isn't it? Yeah. That's everything. That's huge. What a shift that is. Yeah, what a shift. You know, for some of us coming in from other traditions, that's almost blasphemy. How dare you say you are an expression of God? But that's exactly what the Bible says. It's exactly what it says. In February, the theme was living in unity and oneness. And a few of us took a field trip along with my friends from River Phoenix, myself, Donna, Norma, Patricia Wagner. And we went to the Peace and Justice Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, and got quite an education on, this idea. Living in unity and oneness, that's where you see all of the disunity, right? And all of the division and where the genesis of a lot of that. So it was eye-opening, it was heart-opening. It was an amazing experience. And I would love to see us take a trip like that as a congregation, to maybe create another trip out to Selma or to Washington, D.C., or back to the Peace and Justice Museum, because it informs how I walk and talk and interact in this world, the things that I learned in that place. Yes, there's a couple of books out in the bookstore area. Field trips, was that also Posse? Yeah, Posse music. How many of you are familiar with that term? There's a whole genre of music that's called Posse music. And it's yes, you got to sing with all of these amazing artists at the Posse music. And they used to do it in Florida, but now it's going to be at the Unity Center. And basically, it's music with a message. It's all positive music, and the artists are just incredible. And we got a new person. We got lots of new people out of it, actually, through Posse music, and lots of great connections. And lots of the musicians then came here because they met our welcoming committee. And so that was a great thing. So I'm looking for more field trips for this year to do some fun things together. Then in March, what was it? Paradigms and possibilities. Paradigms and possibilities. Y'all know what paradigm is? It's like your worldview. It's how you think everything is until you kind of step out of it, right? Like there's a worldview. There used to be many, many, many years ago a worldview that said that the earth was flat. And people lived inside of a flat world. In their minds it was flat. So if you think the world is flat, how does that inform your day-to-day life? You don't travel too far. You definitely don't travel too far. So when you find out, oh my goodness, the world isn't flat. I'm not going to fall off if I go too far. It changes everything. So we talk about paradigms and possibilities, and the paradigms that we live in today. What are some of those givens in our society that we take as gospel, as the truth, as this is how it is? And then you get into this teaching and all that stuff starts to fall away. All those things that you thought were, how it's supposed to be or how it is, and you find out it was all BS. What? And guess what? And I can make my own road? You mean I don't have to do it how my parents did it? I don't have to do it how society tells me it has to be? I can make my own way? Wow. And people in this community know that. right? Because we're all those people that kind of live on the edge. You saying it's a flat earth? I'm going to go right over there to the edge and see. That's the group that's in here, just so you know. So Michael Beckwith, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith from Agape says this quote I love: pain pushes until vision pulls. We don't have to be pushed by pain. Allow yourself to be pulled by vision. Right? You have enough pain in your life, you realize, I don't really need to go there anymore. I'm gonna have that vision and allow myself to be pulled by the vision instead of getting kicked in the butt by the pain when it's time to make a change. Right? So paradigms and possibilities. In April, that was Easter, talking about courage and trust. So the paradigm, we recognize the paradigm, then it takes courage to make that change, doesn't it? It takes courage to step out to the edge, not just to step out, but to take a leap and not know if you're going to be caught. Of course, we know, right? We know in logic and in what we teach, we know that we're going to get caught, but in that human part of us, I'm not so sure, right? I'm not so sure. Like, I wasn't so sure when I stepped away from the pulpit. What is this going to look like? But I knew that the guidance was telling me this is what I needed to do. And if I follow that guidance, I know that it's all going to be okay. Right? So we talk about courage and trust. I rise by releasing all resentment, fear, and doubt, surrendering to the love within me. Right? We rise. We rise. We may fall down, but we always rise. Right? May was about cultivating community. It's about cultivating community. And I love the word synergy. You know the word synergy? I say it here a lot. That's when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's not that 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 is 2,000 when you have synergy. Right? When we have people that come together as we do in spiritual community for similar goals, for the same goal, for all of us to grow. That's why we're here, right? That's why you come to a spiritual center, is to grow. People come together and you do things as a group that you couldn't ever do on your own. Because we learn from one another, we lift one another, right? That's the importance of being in community. Because we don't teach, there's no hell and damnation, you guys. Nobody is compelled to be here. I'm not trying to save anybody, right? We don't believe that. You're already saved. You're already perfect. You're already whole. You could all sit at home and, watch Super Soul Sunday or whatever, whatever thing floats your boat. But we come together in community because it's different, because it kicks it up a notch, because we can do things together that we can't do by ourselves. And so I'm always so grateful for this community and for people who love to play in the same sandbox that I like to play in. So synergy, the creation of a whole that is greater than the simple sum of its parts. And then in June, we talked about giving of ourselves. We talked about giving of ourselves and the idea that we rise by lifting others. Also goes along with community, doesn't it? Part of why we come together. There are people, a lot of people come to this place when they're kind of on their knees. You know what I'm talking about? Right? Those dark nights of the soul, things are really rough, there's been some kind of loss or betrayal or whatever, and they come here and it gets fixed. It's magically like life starts working, and they kind of like ease on down the road, or they, life just takes them in other directions. But what I want to see here in this place is that it's a place where we keep coming back to plug in. You go out in the world and you do your thing, and then you come back here and you get a recharge, right? You go out in the world and you do your thing, and you come back here and get recharged, and we recharge one another. We recharge one another. I think that was one of the great gifts of me stepping away, was that it allowed other people to step in and share their gifts, right? So we rise by helping one another. And this community is so important and vital for that. In July, it's the 4th of July. We talk about Independence Day. So, of course, it was freedom of thought. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. right? We all need to know the truths for ourselves, those truths that set us free. And all of these things kind of go together. It's not, one. There are tendrils that, that connect each one of these different ideas. In August, we talked about respecting other nations and people. To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. That's Nelson Mandela. It's not enough for me to have my stuff together, for me to feel like I got it all going on, if people around me don't, right? If the people around me are in pain, if the people around me are still in chains. I came here, and I was one of those people on my knees when I found this place. Actually, not right when I found it, but shortly thereafter. It was like Spirit was getting me ready, for this. I'm going to pull the rug out from under you, but you're going to be in this safe place where you can go through all of your drama and your stuff. And I kind of went off on a tangent there. Well, I got the goodies, right? I got this teaching and these ideas that helped me change my life, and then I couldn't keep it to myself, right? I had to go out there and tell everybody about it. I was trying to bring in my family, all my friends, and some of them came and some of them didn't. And now I don't do that anymore either. I don't do that. Now I feel like I'm here to just live and be an example. Live in such a way that people say, I want some of what you got. Anybody want to be like that? Yes. Right? To have people saying something is different about you. I don't know what that is, but I want whatever it is, whatever that is, I want some of what you got. And so we live in a way that invites the best from others. Right? So it's not enough for me to be free, for me to feel like my life is awesome. I want all my loved ones to feel that way too. And not just the ones that I love, but just like everybody, right? It's not enough to feel it for myself. I want to see it everywhere. And then in September, ensuring the stewardship of our planet, going from surviving to thriving. This was a big thing for me. Asilomar, how many of you have heard of that place, Asilomar? Yes, I know you know it. So Asilomar is a state beach on the coast of California over by Monterey. And in our movement, it's significant. From the 1950s all the way on until like 2000, there were yearly gatherings at Asilomar with Ernest Holmes and ministers from all over the country, and it was just a week-long retreat where people could love on each other and you kind of get with your tribe. And so they stopped doing Asilomar some years ago, and this past summer they had it again, and I'd never had the opportunity to go there. The other thing that happened at that retreat for me personally was that I was going through my ordination panel, which is, in our movement, it's a little bit different than other religious traditions. In other places, when you become a minister, you're ordained automatically. In our movement, it takes 3 years of being in a pulpit and lots of reporting and things like that. And then you sit before a panel of people that goes over your reports and stuff for the 3 years, and they interview you, and they say, yes, you can be ordained, you're minister for life, or no, come back again. And so in 2018, I had my first panel interview, and it did not go the way I anticipated. I got a thumbs down. It was mind-blowing, let me just tell you, because it never, ever occurred to me that I would not be ordained. It just blew me completely out. So I had a year to kind of deal with this. And then at Asilomar, I was paneling again. And I've shared this story before, so I know some of you have heard it, but I'll really quick. My husband and I were on vacation, because that's when we take our vacation that time of year. We celebrate our anniversary. And Grady was going home from Northern California. He was coming here, and I was going to stay on at Asilomar for my panel. And the day before my panel, I went into a full-blown panic attack, not even realizing that it had anything to do with the panel. I thought it was something completely different. But when I got to Asilomar and could feel the relief of just being here, then I was just all pissed off. I went through all this, like, you know what I mean? That roller coaster of emotion, and realizing, oh my God, I'm here again in front of all of my peers, right? Going through this interview process again, and what happens if I fail this time? I have to come back to my spiritual community again and tell them I failed again. Like, it was like, I'm not sure I'm up for this. And I actually had this vision after hearing one of the speakers, the very first one speak, um, well, the story was, the woman, it was Temple Hayes, told a story about Ernest Holmes, the founder, being at Asilomar. Ernest gets this big cut on his arm, and he's bleeding profusely, and people are running around, going, we gotta bandage it up, bandage it up. And Ernest goes, no, just watch spirit heal. Watch as spirit does its thing. And in that moment, as I'm sitting there in the audience, I'm hearing about Ernest and the gash on his arm, and I got a vision, I got a sense of myself with both my arms, just a gash from here on both arms. That was the picture. And like, here I am again with these gashes, like these open wounds from my last ordination panel. I'm like, I'm going to let you go in there and dig it up again. I'm not sure I'm up for that. And then the next part of the conversation, of course, you know, watch spirit heal, watch spirit heal. And I thought, that's why I'm here. It's to watch spirit heal and to know that I'm going to be healed out of this. So let me go back to my first ordination panel. It was a retreat with with the peers, a group of ministers, about 100 of us. And the panel was the first thing on the agenda. Like 3 or 4 days we were together. The panel's the first thing, and I fail. And now I've got to hang out with these people for like 3 or 4 days. The last place I want to be. The last place I want to be. So fast forward, now we're in Asilomar a year later, and the panel is at the end of Asilomar. Not at the beginning, at the end of it. And I'm thinking, damn it. Why couldn't we have this thing done so I could enjoy the rest of the retreat? Why would they put, like, how inconsiderate? You know, but then I realized in that moment it needed to be at the end of the retreat because I needed that retreat experience to heal, right, the gash. And I did. So by the time I did my panel, I was ready for whatever it needed to be. You know, either I was going to pass, and if I didn't, I was up for that too. It was okay. It was all good because I know it doesn't mean anything. Ultimately, right? Ultimately, it doesn't mean anything. I know who I am, just like I did when I took the first panel and felt like they made a mistake. They did. Anyway, that's another story. So that was September. And I did pass my panel, by the way. I did, yes. So, and what else we got in September? We got 2 new practitioners, Donna and Norma. Stand up. We know who they are. So again, from just surviving to thriving. So I've been here now for 4 years as a minister, and we didn't have any practitioners. The one practitioner we had passed away soon after I started, the wonderful Ken Green. But now, not just surviving, we're thriving. We have practitioners, and we have other people taking classes and in the pipeline, and things are happening. So October, spirituality in action, cherishing the human family. The greatest use of life is to use it for something that will outlast it. You know, I love that picture because it kind of reminds me, it's not exactly the circle of life, but that's what it reminds me of, right? That we are all here, you know, on this spinning blue planet for some purpose. And I know that I want to leave things better than I found them. And I know I'm in a community that feels the same way, right? How many of you feel that? Right? Like we're here for a time, really a short time. And we're not here to survive. We're really not. Because we don't survive. Right? That's the bottom line. We're not surviving anyway. Nobody gets out of it alive. So you might as well make the most of the time that you have here. Leave things better than you found them. You're always making a difference. Oh, that's the next slide. The next slide. In November, we talked about spiritually motivated moral leadership. We're all leaders. We're all being called to be leaders in different ways. Even our little people, even our young people. I've got 3 grandchildren. The 2-year-old big brother is the leader of the 4-month-old, the 6-month-old. She looks up to him like he's like God. It's her eyes just light up when she sees him. We all are leaders. We all have an impact. And it's not a question of will I make a difference? It's a question of what difference will I make? Being conscious of the choices that you make and the things that you say and the things that we do, just being conscious, aware of that, again, of leaving things better than we found them. And then this month we talked about illumination. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine. How many of you? I see, and she lets her light shine. We have some bright, sparkly, shiny people in here. But we don't always give ourselves permission to let our light shine. But if we don't let our light shine, if we don't let people know who we are, how are they going to find us? I'm tired of being this beautiful little secret. People need to know we're here. Right? Yes. Yes, people need to know. They're looking for us. People want this message. They want to live their best lives. They're wanting to leave things better. And they're feeling very lonely because the world out there can be a really negative place. And they're tired of being shitted on. Thanks, Norma. So what does that mean? Illumination. This comes from the glossary of the Science of Mind from Ernest Holmes. He says illumination is direct contact with reality or God. It is the self-knowingness of God through man. Illumination comes as man realizes his unity with the whole. The only God man can ever know is the God of his own inner life. So this idea of illumination, of being the light, of being enlightened, right? That's what happens to us as we live in that closer presence of the indwelling presence. And I like that phrase. I'm going to pick that apart a little bit. The only God that man can ever know is the God of his own inner life. It really doesn't help you if I have an amazing spiritual experience, right? I mean, it does, because I can tell you about it and it creates maybe some possibility for you. But the fact of the matter is that your life will change when you have the experience. Each one of us has our own path. Each one of us has to have our own relationship and our own experience with the divine. And that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here. Again, the possibilities of us having that kind of experience are much greater. They go up exponentially as we come together in community. And we do the practice. That's the other thing. It's both. You have to take the time within yourself. You have to do the spiritual practice. You have to do the self-examination. You have to do the work. And it helps to have a group behind you. Absolutely does. So that's where we've been. That's kind of our trajectory with spirituality in action. I love the last month that we were talking about illumination and shine and all of that good stuff, being shiny and sparkly, because I've not always let myself shine. I like to be in the background. Believe it or not, I know people see you get on stage, they think you must be this extrovert and love to be in the spotlight, and that is not the case for me. I am not that. I'm not the life of the party, really and truly. I have a foot in both worlds, right? I'm introvert, extrovert. I kind of go both, so I understand both of those things. You get that now? Yeah, I have that. So the idea of allowing my light to shine is not entirely comfortable, but I realize that it is necessary. It's necessary. That's what I came here to do. That's what you all came here to do. To use your gifts, to use your talents, to live your life to the biggest and the best, whatever that means for you. Each one of us is here to do that. And if I stop myself, I'm not being a very good example. I'm not being a very good minister. Right? So we all have our spheres of influence. And I want you all to live the biggest, boldest, best lives possible. So for Vision 2020, where are we headed? What are we going to do? I'm not doing the group thing. As much as I wanted to, I really, really, really wanted to do what the rest of the organization was doing, I got to do my own thing. There's a shocker. So we go like every other year. I do what the group is doing, and I do my own thing. But this year, Vision 2020, exploring mystics, masters, and paths of enlightenment. It's that idea of illumination, right? Of enlightenment. It's all of that. And that's why I think we're all here. Isn't it? Now, to say I want to be enlightened, does that make anyone else feel kind of like weird? Like, who am I to say I want to be enlightened? Anybody else have that little twinge? Like, should I say enlightenment? Yes, damn it, I'm going to say enlightenment. Yes, that's why we come here, to be the best, to have that, what is it? It is that foundation, it is that knowing, it is that we carry with us everywhere we go, that we know that we are part of that larger thing. We know that we are always taken care of. We know that life is always unfolding the way it should. I can know that my steps are always divinely guided, even when it doesn't look like it. Even when it doesn't look like, to know that we are on track. What was that? Gnosticism is that knowing, the inner knowing. Yes, and that's what we're all here for. So we're going to exploring the mystics, exploring the masters of all different faith traditions. I'm super excited about this. Like, you know, 1 month we're going to do Hinduism, another month we'll do Buddhism. Of course, we're going to do Christianity, because that's where most of us are from, right? But Christianity, like the real Jesus, what Jesus taught, not what people teach about Jesus, interpreting what he said and what. No, we're going to go directly to the source. Yeah, the red letters. Yes, the red letters in the Bible. That's what we're focusing on. And paths of enlightenment. So we're going to do this together. We're going to do this together. Doesn't this sound like fun? I'm super excited about this. I know Donna's going to talk about Bob Marley. Is it okay to tell her that? He was a mystic. He was a mystic. So we're going to be looking at all different faith traditions, the mystics, the masters, and talk about these paths of enlightenment and spiritual practices that go with that. So we're super excited about our Vision 2020. And if you're looking at that saying enlightenment, I don't know. You may still be sitting there going, enlightenment, like what is that all about? I have to tell you, I think the most enlightened beings I know are my grandchildren. My 3 grandchildren. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, they are so present. They are present. They will stare you in the eyes. They don't have that thing of like, it's not polite to stare at people. They will just like go into your soul. They are present, they are in joy, right? It's just that natural bubbling up of them of joy. And when they're sad and when they're angry, they feel whatever it is that they feel, and it flows right through. And they move on to the next thing. I think they're brilliant. They just live in that close connection to the source. They haven't forgotten it yet. So enlightenment is for everybody. Illumination is for everybody. It's not just for people sitting in temples or up in mountains and caves and things like that. We can all be certainly more illumined than we are. That's for sure. Ernest Holmes said this is part of our statement of belief. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual, and that any person, anyone, may be a revealer of truth as long as they live in close contact with the indwelling God. Like those grandbabies that bring joy. All they have to do is walk into a room, right? I know, you saw that. They bring joy wherever they go. And that's what I want for each one of us, to be the person who lights up the space. You all up for that? Ernest Holmes said this from his chapter on what the mystics have taught. The greater one's consciousness of the indwelling I am, the more fully one lives. You know that's the name of God. I am. Every time you say I am, you are invoking the name of God. So be careful what you put after that. I am. I am. I am healthy. I am whole. I am love. I am free. I am prosperous. Be careful. Put what you want to see after those words. Okay, so the greater one's consciousness of the indwelling I am, the more fully one lives. All the great souls have known this. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. This was the declaration of the great Master, and it should be ours also. Not a limited sense of life, but a limitless sense of life. So we all knew who the Master is that said those words. It's not me doing the work. It's Spirit as me, through me. That's who does the work. And that's the place that we want to get to, is get our own bloated nothingness out of the way. As Emerson says, get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits and let Spirit show up as it's meant to and as it wants to. And then our life has no limits. We're living a limitless life. You get to pick and choose. And so next week, what we're doing here is we're going to have our annual bowl burning ceremony. How many of you have participated in that before? Raise your hand. How many of you got your letters from last year? Great, great. So here's what we're going to do next week. We call it Burning Bowl Ceremony. And for the first part of the ceremony, we're going to probably have tables. I think, Angel, we're going to set up the room with the tables so people can write. And for the first part of the ceremony, you're going to be writing the things that you want to release from the year before. And then we're going to burn it. And the next part of the ceremony, you're going to write a letter to yourself from the future of the vision and what you want to see in the year 2020. And then we'll put it in an envelope, we'll hold on to it, and then we will mail it back to you at the end of the year so you get a nice surprise. But it's a really powerful ceremony. It's really, once a year thing that we do, and I highly recommend it. Bring some friends and come in and enjoy that. It's really, it's just a great way to kick off the new year. I guess, and what else do we have going on? Well, I'll talk about that in announcements. So are you all ready for 2020? Yes. And getting where, yeah?